How's it going, everyone? I keep seeing questions like this pop up on Saab Facebook groups and forums, so I figured I would take the time to make a video discussing oil leaks on the new generation Saab 9.3 and specifically the 2-liter turbocharged motor that is in my 03 9.3 right here. As you can tell from the title, I'm going to be discussing 4 different leak spots, common leak spots on these cars, probably from most common to least common. These are all leaks that I have actually fixed on this car, so with the exception of the last one, I will be linking videos for repairs in case your car has the same leak. I will link that in the top corner when I talk about it. But if you're watching this video and you have a Saab 9.3 like this, chances are you're either currently leaking oil from there or you've already repaired it, because I can tell you that in, my time with these cars and seeing other people's cars and, everything, it seems like a lot of them have these leaks. Now, that's not to say that these cars all leak oil, they're all horrible. And there's obviously other spots besides these 4 that the cars can leak oil from. And if you have other common oil leak spots, feel free to drop those down below in the comments. But these are just some of the most common areas to check, especially if you see a puddle under your car. If you guys would like to support the channel more, be sure to check out my Patreon. I will have it linked at the top of the description. It helps me be able to keep 3 Saabs on the road because, well, especially with this 9.5 wagon, it has not been cheap. So go ahead, check it out. I'm not going to ask for your money, but if you're interested, it's sitting right there at the top of the description. With that being said, though, let's get into probably the most common oil leak spot on these cars, and that is the power steering pump, which is right here. The power steering pump repair, it's probably the most involved out of all these. It is very simple to take off the car. There's just a couple of bolts right around here, this banjo bolt right here too, and once you get this whole reservoir and pump off the car, you have to disassemble it. Each Saab Parts actually makes a kit for this repair that comes with like 4, 5, or 6 different gaskets and O-rings to pretty much completely rebuild this whole assembly, and it's like $30 or $40. So if you're leaking oil out of here, I'd highly recommend checking out the video I did on it. Probably the second most common oil leak spot on these cars is actually located directly behind the power steering pump and reservoir, and that is the vacuum pump. I also did a video rebuilding this. This is a little bit easier than the power steering pump. There's only 1 seal and 1 O-ring for it, so it's not too bad. Very simple to get off, just like the power steering pump. You gotta take off the ionization module here, and then there's a couple of bolts and a vacuum line you gotta pop off, but very simple repair. Probably if you were to do both of these, you could get them done in an afternoon, if that, probably even less. One of the issues with the vacuum pump leak in particular that I had with my car is that the oil tends to leak out of the back of the pump, and then it'll drip back behind and eventually end up down on the turbo, and then you'll smell burning oil as you're driving. And that kind of coincides with another relatively common oil leak spot on these cars, and that's the valve cover gasket. I recently did this repair as well. Pretty straightforward and simple, not very hard to do at all like these other 2, but I had some oil buildup back in here. But if you take off this cover right here and you see oil down by your spark plugs, chances are that your valve cover is probably leaking, but that also can attribute to oil buildup all back here. So valve cover gasket, not the worst job. All 3 of these parts together for power steering pump, vacuum pump, and the valve cover gasket, you can probably get all those parts for under $100, and it's not a whole lot of work, like I said. Now the 4th spot, I actually didn't do this repair myself. I had a shop do it just because I was very short on time, which was a bit unfortunate. I could have saved myself some money. But the oil level sensor, now that is way down under here. It sits right on front of the oil pan. There's a little sensor that goes right in the oil pan on the front of it. Those can leak. Now the proper way to fix this is to drain all the oil out of the car and then drop the oil pan and replace the sensor that way. I don't have a video on this one because I didn't do the repair myself, but from what I've heard, it's not terribly difficult. Like I said, there are other oil leak spots on these cars besides these 4, but these are the 4 that I have personally dealt with, and the 4 that I know are very likely to be the most common and what is probably leaking on your Saab 9.3 if you're leaking oil. So if you guys have any other additions to this list, please feel free to leave them down below. Of course, there are other spots, like I said. With that being said, I think that's all I've got for today, guys. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.